A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a scholar of the law, tested him by asking, "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" He said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. The whole law and the prophets depend on these two commandments." The Gospel of the Lord.
So we celebrate today Saint Bernard, probably most famous for his dog, right? And so, but he lived 1,000 years ago and was a tremendous force, an incredibly rich life, so much. He's a doctor of the church, which means that his writings as well as his life are canonized, basically, that his writings are part of the great gift that has been passed on to us by all of these great saints. But the doctors particularly contributed to the doctrine of the church. So Saint Bernard, and one of the things that he said, and I'm just going to kind of summarize it a little bit and paraphrase him a little, and you've all heard this, most of you have heard this, a good life is its own reward. To live a good life, love is its own reward. To be good is its own reward. You don't have to be patted on the back, you don't have to get a medal, okay? That goodness to others is its own reward in yourself. Love is the greatest and the first commandment, right? And I'll say we pair this truth that Jesus tells us today. What is the great commandment? What is the first commandment? What is the most powerful commandment? What's the most necessary commandment? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. You should all know that. And love your neighbor as yourself. And to love God is its own reward. You don't need God to give you anything, okay? If you have love in your soul, it is the greatest, the most precious, the most permanent, in fact, eternal gift that there is. Do you have love in your soul? And if you do, where did it come from? It came from God, because God is love. And let me tell you, it's just, I'm not insulting you, but you're not capable of loving on your own. You need the life of God in you. What do we call that? We call that grace, okay? And how do you get God's grace? As I like to say, any way God chooses to give it to you, okay? But we get God's grace through the sacraments. We get God's grace through prayer. We get God's grace through a hunger and a thirst to look around this world and say, I need to love more. I want to be loved more. Anybody here ever said that? Anybody here ever prayed that? To hunger and thirst for the gift of God. We hear Jesus tell us today, the first and the greatest commandment is to love God with all your mind, heart, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Is it always easy to love? Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is generous. Love forgives. Is it always easy to love? Say, no, Father Mike. It's not. But it's necessary. And guess what? It's its own reward. Patience and kindness and generosity are a life well lived. And a life well lived is its own reward. So today, let's beg God that we would be capable of loving Him, loving our neighbor, and know the reward of our goodness now and for eternity. This is your invitation to give yourself a beautiful gift. Are you interested in Catholicism, learning more about the Catholic faith? We have a process here at Our Lady of the Gulf to teach, to grow in faith, and we want you to join.